You're listening to Release Your Resistance with Bex Beltran, episode 109. Welcome to Release Your Resistance. This is Bex. The only reason why any of us don't have what we want in life is because of our own resistance. Right now, I'm learning how to recognize and release my resistance, and this podcast tells you how you can release your resistance so that you can live the exact life that you want. Let's get started. In June, I did something so fun and colorful and purposeful. It was such a great use of my time and energy and creativity, and I got so excited about it, and I'm still getting the benefits from it almost a month later, so I thought I would share it with you in a podcast episode. But before I do, let me just address and confirm, yes, it has been a few months since my last episode. You may have missed or forgotten, or if you're hearing this podcast for the first time, maybe you didn't know that here in 2022, in season 3, I have decided to let my episodes just come out naturally and organically, without any expectation of frequency or regularity. The last episode that I published in May was a very fun author interview with my friend Amy about her new book. So if you missed that episode, please go back and listen after you are finished with this one. And one reason why I wanted to share this episode specifically today is because it is the birthday of one of the show's biggest fans, my mom. So Mom, if you're listening today on your birthday, here is a very public happy birthday wish for you. Now let's go to today's topic, my June project. Just to give you a little background information, in May, I got the nudge that I wanted to make some dog portraits. I have been spending a lot of time with a lot of cute dogs lately, so I've been taking so many pictures of cute dogs, and I got the idea of turning some of those pictures into miniature painted portraits by transferring the photos onto canvas and then painting over them. The mini portraits did not turn out well at all, but that nudge to get out my paints did make me want to learn how to actually paint a dog portrait on my own. So I looked for a few tutorials, I watched a few videos, and I gave it a try. And it was so fun and rewarding and enjoyable. And after the first few tutorials, I realized I could probably really improve my skill and technique if I painted a lot more and if I painted every day. So I decided to come up with a project for June. I called it A Dog a Day. My plan was to paint a dog every day in June, and I was so excited to get started, and I told everyone what I was doing. I stocked up on canvases and paint and brushes. I started collecting and organizing pictures of the dogs that I would paint in the coming weeks. And June came, and I got started, and it was fun and motivating and interesting and exciting. And it was also a little challenging. By the end of June, I had painted 30 dogs, more if you include the dogs that I painted in May. I had improved my skills and my confidence, and I had some amazing art to hang on my walls. And the best part was that I was reminded of some very valuable lessons. The top 3 reminders that I learned from my June 2022 project of painting 30 dogs in 30 days were: massive action works, contrast makes things more interesting, and mind management helps to make it through the messy middle. I talked about how I love to learn things and the magic of taking massive action in a few of my previous episodes. I hadn't listened to the specific examples and steps that I shared in those episodes in a while, but when I did re-listen to them lately in preparation for this episode, I had to laugh at how consistent I am. I pretty much followed all of my own steps that I shared in those earlier episodes for this June project without even knowing it. So if you are curious about how to learn something new for yourself, and if you want to hear some practical tips about how to apply massive action, I will link those episodes so that you can listen to them later. Just go to the show notes for this episode at bexb.org/30dogs. That's bexb.org/30dogs. Having the massive action plan of painting 30 dogs in 30 days, no matter what, created so many benefits for me. I got the momentum that I wanted to start and then to keep going. I felt a sense of purpose. I was able to quickly see my own progress, and the people that I told about the project helped to keep me accountable and celebrated with me when I finished. You know the expression about how a journey starts with a single step? That's momentum. And once I got started, that momentum just propelled me forward throughout the month. As soon as I saw one completed dog portrait, I could imagine seeing the other 29 completed portraits. So if you are hesitating or procrastinating anything in your life, consider what a powerful motivator momentum is and just take the very first single step. And throughout June, I knew I would be painting a dog every day. I arranged my schedule around what time I would be painting. And at the end of the day, I would think about and sometimes even prep for the dog I would be painting the next day. It felt so good to have this daily plan that was part of a bigger plan. It felt like purpose. And the progress that I made was a little bit of a surprise, but it shouldn't have been. It is logical that if you do something every day, you will see progress. But the surprise was how much I learned. I was able to see patterns in my thinking with each new painting. I could feel myself gaining experience and confidence. And plus, since I kept all the portraits in a specific album, I loved seeing that album grow every day, and I loved seeing the count get higher and higher. I told a few supportive, encouraging people about this plan for myself, and even if they didn't explicitly ask throughout the month, I knew they knew, and that knowledge gave me another reason to keep going. Plus, I loved the accountability of seeing the number of portraits in that album on my phone. I was so motivated to get the count up to over 30. The day that I finished the project, June 30th, I felt so excited. That morning, I knew I had time to paint in the morning before my scheduled calls in the afternoon, but I also gave myself time after those to finish that last painting if necessary. And then I also had a happy hour scheduled with my friends that evening. I finished the painting that morning in record time, and it turned out so great. So what a great end to the project. And I went into my afternoon feeling so proud and light and celebratory. And I put on some red lipstick and some fun earrings, and my joy and celebration just vibrated out of me to everyone that I talked with later that day and that night. Let's talk about contrast. Do you know the concept of contrast? The idea that knowing what you don't want shows you what you do want? Part of it could also be about being aware of what you don't like so that you appreciate more what you do like. In coaching circles, we also call this the 50-50, referring to life as always 50% bad and 50% good. And I put bad and good in quotes because nothing is ever really bad or good. It's just what we think about it. In art, a big part of what you see and perceive is the contrast, or the 50-50 on the canvas. But in painting, there's no good or bad value like in life. In life, we might think certain emotions or situations have a bad or a negative or an unwanted value. But in painting, it's just contrast, light or dark, not good or bad. Years ago when I was taking a watercolor class, my teacher's most common advice to me was, make it darker. And I never wanted to. I exercised my artistic freedom and I kept all of my paintings very light. Now, as I've been painting and trying to improve my representations, I see how valuable and important contrast is. I see so clearly why my teacher encouraged me to make it darker. The difference between the light and the dark makes things more real and interesting on the canvas, and in life too. Life and paintings would be dull, flat, and boring without contrast. In art and in life, contrast creates reflection, depth, and perspective. What a good reminder for me. How interesting that now I am super invested in bringing more darkness to my paintings, but still afraid to allow it so much in life. What about you? Have you seen examples in your own life how contrast makes it more interesting and provides you with more perspective? I talked about the messy middle on this podcast before when I shared the reminders that I learned from renovation, and you can find a link to that episode at bexby.org/30dogs, 30dogs. Facing the messy middle every day during this month-long project really helped me see a specific pattern about getting through the tough times. Some common thoughts started to sound very repetitive day after day. Maybe you hear these kinds of thoughts about your own daily activities. Mine sounded like, now it's ruined, or I don't know how to keep going from here, or this isn't good, and it's not turning out how I wanted. As these phrases became more and more repetitive and familiar, I started to recognize, oh, I always think these same thoughts when I get to this stage of the painting. I was actually able to notice my stages of painting and how I feel different emotions during the different stages. And then those emotions weren't a problem anymore. Some stages feel fun, and I think they're easy. Some stages I dread, but because I was painting a dog a day, I just kept going despite the dread and the untrue thoughts that I didn't know how to keep going. And in case you're curious about my stages of dog painting, there are 6 of them. I will share them here because you might be interested in my painting process, but more because you might recognize these stages as similar to something that you go through in your own life or work or relationships or projects. So here are the 6 stages of dog painting. Stage 1 is planning and preparation. This stage is so fun and easy for me. I scroll through photos of cute dogs to decide who I will paint and how I will position them on the canvas. I crop the photo and I size it and I transfer the image onto the canvas. I decide on and paint the background color. There's no resistance at all during this stage. It is so easy and fun and enjoyable. And sometimes I do this for multiple paintings at once. Stage 2 is painting the underlayer. This part is also so fun and easy. It is actually painting, and it does require paying attention and noticing the values and the detail and the direction of the dog's fur, but it is just an underlayer and it will be painted over, so it's so free. It's making a huge mess and it's so fun. Stage 3 is painting the eyes and nose, and I really pride myself on doing a good job on the eyes and nose, and I love seeing the dog come to life through those features. Once when I did the eyes and nose before doing the underlayer, it looked like the dog was peeking through a white sheet with holes in it until I painted the rest of the painting around it. So this is also one of my favorite stages. The next stage is cleaning up the mess and detail painting. This is the stage I dread. All the resistance comes up for me during this stage. I wonder how I can possibly go from the mess of the underlayer to the final product of the finished painting. I tell myself I don't know how, and it's not going to turn out, and everything is ruined. I lose all my motivation and momentum during this stage. I really have to manage my mind through this part and just work on little tiny sections at a time and remind myself that none of this really matters, and I have done this before, and it will probably be fine. Stage 5 is finishing and making adjustments. This stage is better than the detail painting of the last stage because I am on the other side of all my doubt and resistance, and I can see that the painting does resemble the photo that I'm working from. But this stage is still stressful and challenging for me because now I have invested so much time and emotion, and I really want it to work, and I still doubt my ability and my skill, and I still have to manage my mind and just keep pushing myself to take the next step and the next step until I get to the final stage, which is deciding that it's done and signing it. One of my favorite techniques that I learned through this Painting a Dog a Day project was to take a picture of my painting when I think it's done, and then I can toggle back and forth between the painting and the reference photo on my phone so I can see what needs to be darkened or lightened or fixed. And I truly believe that figuring out this trick has improved my painting so much. So I am pretty excited when I get to this stage. I am finally on the other side of all the stress and challenge. And this part is usually a little bit easier again. And when I finally tell myself it's good enough and I decide to sign it, I feel a huge sense of relief and pride and accomplishment. And signing the painting and propping it up on my bookshelf feels like such a reward. And then I get another little dopamine hit when I take the photo of the final painting and I add it to my portraits album. So those are the 6 stages of dog painting, plus of course your 3 reminders that I got from painting a dog a day in June. Can you apply those reminders or even the stages to your life? Massive action works. Contrast makes things more interesting. And mind management helps with the messy middle. What do you think? Can you apply them to what you do every day or to a project that you are curious about trying? I cannot wait to hear how these reminders work for you. Let me know by sending me an email at hi@bexby.org or leave a comment at bexby.org/30dogs, 30dogs. So what's next for me? What's my new project in August? Well, I'm experimenting to see if I can find 10 dog portrait commissions. So this is a different kind of challenge for me because it doesn't just involve me, it includes other people deciding that they want to participate. And because these are paid commissions, this experiment introduces the quote-unquote drama of money and value and worth. So this August experiment is also showing me how things that I've done in the past can reappear with different benefits that I would have never thought of before. For example, in January of this year, I did an engagement experiment on Instagram, and I thought I was doing it because I thought I wanted to take my coaching practice in a more technical direction. But now I see that another benefit was that I may have been doing that experiment to prepare myself for this experiment 8 months later, since I have decided to make another new Instagram account all about dog paintings. So if you want to follow along on my August project of finding 10 paid dog portrait commissions, you can do a few things. You can follow the new Instagram account that I'm creating just about dog painting. You can tell your friends and favorite dog parents about my paintings and this episode, and you can consider a commissioned dog portrait for your own home or space. And you can find all of this at the show notes for this episode at bexby.org/30dogs, 30 dogs. And beyond August, who knows? Maybe you have a suggestion or a request. For example, I have a few other episode ideas that I'm thinking of for future weeks and months. Maybe I'll talk about my word of the year finally for 2022. It just emerged recently. Maybe you would like to hear about all of the experiments that I have tried this year or books I'm loving right now. What else would you be curious to hear about? Once again, let me know by sending me an email at hi@bexby.org or leaving a comment at bexby.org/30dogs. And that is it for today. Thank you so much for listening. Please check out my dog paintings by going to the show notes for this episode at bexby.org/30dogs or poking around any of my social media accounts that you might follow. And stay subscribed to this podcast in your favorite podcast player and on my email list so that you will be notified when the next episode of the Release Your Resistance podcast comes out. Thank you so much for listening. I will talk to you later. Bye-bye. This has been Release Your Resistance. Thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, make sure you're subscribed and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Also, think about someone who you know who would love this episode and share it with them. There should be a share button on your app if you're listening to this on your phone. If you'd like to continue this conversation one-on-one or in real time, come visit me on my site at bexby.org to see how we can work together.